What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast that houses a safe and open listening platform for all the casual, cold, and the dumb takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to today's episode number 97 of this freezing cold podcast that houses that icy and spicy lasagna in that very cold fridge. Today, we got a good show for you all. I guess it is Wrestlemania week, but, well, we're not here to talk about that because we still got our March Madness going on here on Very Cold Lasagna because we got part 5. Part 6. Is that the number? No, that's not the number. It's Cinco. It's number 5 of our March Madness here on Very Cold Lasagna with our 2021 NFL season recaps. We got the final 4. Oh, wait. The not so final 4 of our teams remaining. We got the Buffalo Bills, the Tennessee Titans, the Green Bay Packers, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. The 4 teams that didn't get to the conference championship games, let alone the Super Bowl, for many reasons alone. So we're going to be talking about those 4 teams today, and in our final season recap episode in this coming week, we'll be talking about the 3 teams remaining. Now keep in mind, remember, all the way back when we first started this thing, I already mentioned when we first started, I already talked about my San Francisco 49ers well back in February. So if you didn't catch that episode, I recommend you check it out wherever you get your podcast. So anyway, I first wanted to start off the show today talking about Wrestlemania. I know it's been a very football centric show for, well, the last month and several months for now. And I just gotta say about Wrestlemania really quick, it's Wrestlemania week, and for all of my listeners and for some of my closest people, I'm a wrestling fan. I honest to God can't say I'm a huge wrestling fan as it speaks right now because of the sad state that it's in. And well, I gotta say to you, I gotta be honest with you, I'm really not looking forward. I actually didn't even remember WrestleMania 38 was this weekend. Like, wow, that's sad and pathetic. Really, it's really kind of sad and pathetic, but at the same time, kind of cleansing, I guess. Oh man, when literally the NFL offseason is literally the new WrestleMania, and when it's better than what the actual WrestleMania is, that's when definitely where, I don't know, I guess definitely where you're at as a wrestling fan right now. Just pure utter dog shit. And definitely goes the same for AEW as well. Wrestling in general is just pure utter dog shit. All the flips, kicks, and utter bullshit. And well, everyone being soft as all hell, complaining about every little thing that people say on Twitter, no matter how big or small their following is. Just like, for example, of Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa complaining about all the critics from their steel cage match, and Thunder Rosa getting all woke about Brock Lesnar's mariachi segment. Like, oh goodness gracious. So anyway, going back to WrestleMania on that side tangent, yeah, I totally forgot it was this week, literally, until I saw a post on Twitter, saying like they're gonna have this WrestleMania Raw, WrestleMania SmackDown. Like, my God, what, like if the NFL did this for like all their playoff games, like there's going to be a WrestleMania, Super Bowl, NFC wildcard, Super Bowl, NFC championship game, or Super Bowl AFC championship game. My God, the marketing would be so terrible. Like, oh goodness gracious. But like when I look at the card, just because I don't know, I just want to take a little glance at it. It's pretty bad. It is so bad. And I still don't understand why they're doing the 2-night WrestleMania thing, because most of these wrestlers don't deserve to be on WrestleMania. Like, the only people I think deserve to be on it at this point are Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. And I gotta tell you, Pat McAfee, he actually is a guy. Like, yes, he's not really a wrestler, but he can hang. He can fucking hang. Watch his matches from NXT TakeOver, I think it's like 2 years ago now, and he can clearly wrestle. He can talk on the mic. He has more charisma than anybody on the roster right now. Of course, besides Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And other than that, I'm not really looking forward to anything else. If I manage to tune into WrestleMania on this weekend, And yeah, they need to go back to one night WrestleMania, put the best of the best, make it 4 hours, just like they did back in the good old days. And yes, I know we can't go back and change history. Oh, you can't go back to the good old days and all that bullshit. So yeah, I don't know. If you're a wrestling fan right now, I mean, are you excited for WrestleMania, Raw, WrestleMania SmackDown, WrestleMania Night 1, Night 2? Oh, gravy. I don't even know if I want to watch any of this coming week. So anyway, back to football. We want to get into some a little bit of not so breaking news, kind of like late out of date breaking news, about some things that went down in last week. Yes, literally last week. So some of this news that I missed on the last episode of Very Cold Lasagna, we're gonna catch up on it right now. The Colts. Well, they got their quarterback. Kind of not the long-term answer at quarterback, though. They trade Matt Ryan. Yes, Matt Ryan from the Atlanta Falcons for just a third-round pick. Yeah, literally. They literally got Matt Ryan for just pennies on the dollar. Now, granted, they're carrying on his big-ass contract, and the Falcons are taking that fat-ass dead cap hit. So, I mean, I guess for the Falcons, yes, yeah, they're going to be in the shitter for a pretty long time. And for the Colts, well, I guess Matt Ryan, I mean, he's pretty solid dude. Now he finally has an offensive line again. You got a good running back in Jonathan Taylor. Just get another receiver opposite Michael Pittman Jr. And well, now you have a defense, a very, very rock solid defense. Just build around Matt Ryan, and hopefully, in a very crowded AFC, if the Colts at least tried to do something right in the draft and build around Matty Ice, who knows? Maybe they can be a dark horse contender in the AFC. Now, the other big breaking news from last week was the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, they traded away Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. Like, holy fuck. Of all the names getting traded to another team, who would have expected Tyreek Hill going to the Miami Dolphins? Now, they were saying that they're trying to work an extension, get Tyreek Hill signed long term, but nothing came to a pass. So at least, Kansas City gave Tyreek Hill and his agent their blessings to, go seek a trade, go let him play somewhere else to get the big fat money. Yes, that's pretty much where sports is nowadays. No more loyalty, unfortunately, except for some certain players. So yeah, Tyreek Hill is now a Miami Dolphin, and I'll start with the Kansas City side first. I think it takes a big hit on their offense. Now, you have to see this big hit, but I think defenses are gonna target Travis Kelce a lot more. I think that's gonna be the big point of attack now. And who's gonna be the big speedy threat for Patrick Mahomes? Who's gonna be the speedy target for Mahomes now? Is it going to be Juju Smith-Schuster? Is it going to be Marcus Valdes-Scantling? Who's it going to be? Who is it going to be? A lot of questions to be answered. Now, obviously, Kansas City is going to be using a boatload of draft picks to go and get a wide receiver, especially in the first round. But you can't really replace the production of Tyreek Hill, just like how the Packers can't really replace the production of Devonte Adams. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for Kansas City to do that. Now for Miami, man, you really got a big addition for the offense. I mean, you got Tyreek Hill now in an offense that has Jalen Waddle, a surging wide receiver on the opposite end. You got Mike Gesicki. Now you got some good running backs now with Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. Granted that he's healthy, he stays healthy for at least one season, and then hopefully you get something out of Myles Gaskins, and then you're building a very, very damn good offensive line, as long as Teron Armstead stays healthy. Now, the question, obviously, is going to be whether or not Tua Tagovailoa is going to put it all together. Is he going to be the quarterback that, well, Miami is hoping to be? And hoping that, we didn't get into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes because we believe in Tua. So it's going to be on Tua's hands now that he has all these weapons. He has an offensive line. There's literally no excuses left for Tua to underperform, disappoint in an offense that literally now has like a veteran to embrace these guys and mentor these young players. Tyreek Hill should be a big asset for Tua. Now it's gonna be up to him, to Tagovailoa, to go out there and execute, go out there and produce with Tyreek Hill and the rest of the offense. So interesting stuff. I don't think Miami's there yet as like in a challenger to the Bills, even with Tyreek Hill, because you don't know what you're gonna get out of Tua just yet. But anything can happen. Anything can happen in the NFL. So yeah, that was the big news coming out of the last week, but everything else, kind of high and dry right now when it comes to the rest of free agency. But that's the name of the game. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts about any of those two big things that happened last week. Matt Ryan going to the Colts and Tyreek Hill going to not the Kansas City Chiefs, the Miami Dolphins. Let me know your thoughts about either one of those things, however you can. So anyway, we're going to talk about our main topic of the day, and that is the continuation of our March Madness. We got two more of these bad boys to go through. We got 4 teams we're going to be talking about today, and as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills, the Tennessee Titans, the Green Bay Packers, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Pretty much the 4 teams that could make it to the NFL's Final Four. And considering that this weekend is also the Final Four, well, yeah, these teams could make it to that dance. And, be it for, well, there's just exponential factors or, injury bug or, disappointment. Yeah, these teams just couldn't get to that finish line when it came to those games in the divisional round. So with that being said, let's talk about these 4 teams, these 4 divisional round losers in part 5 of our 2021 NFL season recaps. So kicking things off with our not so Final Four portion of our 2021 NFL season recaps is the Buffalo Bills. For Bills Mafia, I imagine that 2020 was pretty much everything that you could have imagined. Josh Allen taking a massive leap into his development in his 3rd year, and the Bills giving him as much support as he can by trading for Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Stephon Diggs during that 2020 offseason before the pandemic riddled season began. And Stephon Diggs, mind you, was a massive help for Josh Allen's growth and a big add to a receiver group that only really had Cole Beasley as their main guy. And the Bills went 13-3. Allen playing at the MVP level, but he's only at his peak at this time until we saw what happened this season that we're going to be talking about. And the Bills actually managed to get as far as to the AFC Championship game before they fell to the Kansas City Chiefs. But even then, the future looked bright for the Buffalo Bills. And they didn't really do much during the last offseason, this past offseason last year. And well, yes, they could have used more defensive pieces. They had already had most of the roster still under contract, and they also signed Josh Allen to a long-term extension. You're clearly seeing a lot in him, and to an extent, yes, that was true. Now, mostly everyone came back, but not many new additions. Now, for the Bills, they hope this time around they do even better this season. They go into the playoffs, go much deeper than, we're just going to beat Kansas City again. And this time, go to the Super Bowl for the first time in nearly 30 years. Now, they didn't get off to the greatest of starts. They lost a home opener to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first week of the season, and they were pretty flat on all shapes and sizes. But they managed to bounce back for 4 straight wins. And that win included a early season revenge game against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills blew them out. The Bills defense picked 6 Patrick Mahomes. Pretty good win. And Josh Allen played lights out over Mahomes in that game. Now, after that, they underwent a stretch of inconsistency and pretty much the rest of the way. inconsistent offense, very slow starts from that same Josh Allen offense, and some odd decisions from Sean McDermott in certain games, which led to some pretty bad losses against the Tennessee Titans, the New England Patriots in that very, very bad weather game, the Tampa Bay Bucks, and yeah, let's also mention those losses to the Josh Allenception Jaguars, and yes, getting single-handedly steamrolled by Jonathan Taylor at home. Yeah. Like, those two losses are pretty much inexcusable for the Buffalo Bills. It's pretty much like the problem was for the Bills is that, yeah, while Josh Allen was playing at a all-time level, pretty much at certain points, the defense and wasn't doing their part either. And there are also times where Josh Allen himself, he had a few bad games as well. So fortunately for the Bills, they get a very favorable 4-game stretch to end the season, getting revenge on New England, clinch the AFC East after they lost to the Miami Dolphins, and they get a 3-match at home with the Patriots to begin their playoff stretch. And boy, did they need the Patriots at home, literally, because in that wild card game, yeah, they put the candy-ass whooping on Bill Belichick. Josh Allen and that offense scored on every damn single possession that they could on New England, scoring touchdown after touchdown and limiting New England to just 14 garbage time points. Literally, had the Bills defense, contained Mac Jones just a little bit, this could have been a complete shutout. This literally could have been a complete shutout by the Buffalo Bills in that wild card game. Like, holy hell. Who could expected the Bills to completely destroy Bill Belichick in a playoff game? Who knew? But of course, we all knew what happened after that. You get to the divisional game, you have to face Kansas City again to get to the AFC Championship game, let alone host the AFC Championship game against the Cincinnati Bengals. And you were just seconds away. All you had to do was play defense after Josh Allen gave you another lead with just 13 seconds remaining. And all the Bills defense had to do, especially Sean McDermott, had to dial up a good play call for them, but he didn't. And Patrick Mahomes got Travis Kelce wide open, got into field goal range, set up overtime, and we knew what happened from there. They lost the overtime coin toss, and Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, went marching straight down into Bills territory and got the win from there. Now, I know some people are complaining about, they should change the overtime rules and all that, but the fact of the matter is the Bills defense came out flat. They gave away too many yardage, too many points to Mahomes and the Chiefs. They just gave up too many big plays. That was the common theme for the Buffalo Bills throughout the late stretch of the season. Now, sure, they lost starting corner Tre'Davious White in the secondary, which in my opinion was kind of a big loss to that Bills defense. And still kind of not a big excuse when still have starters like Levi Wallace and Micah Hyde and Jordan Boyer in that backfield, defensive backfield, mind you. And I guess it just wasn't enough. For either one of those guys to hold the unit together. And could they have used more pass rush help from the likes of Mario Addison and Ed Oliver? Sure, but I guess the Kansas City Chiefs just couldn't get it done. Now, the season as a whole, for Buffalo, mostly okay. I think a lot of the season success had to do with Josh Allen again, playing at an even better level than he did in 2020, despite some down games. And Stephon Diggs had another good year as well, but I think Stephon Diggs also got some much needed help from the emerging likes of Gabriel Davis, a second-year receiver, and tight end Dawson Knox. I think Dawson Knox had a much better year than whatever the tight end duo was in 2020. And Gabriel Davis really came on in that divisional game when Stephon Diggs wasn't doing well. he didn't show up for that game. So the problem was for the Bills, aside from the defense, was their running game. Like neither Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, or whoever they had coming in, they weren't really netting any positive yards. They couldn't really break open for a big run, other than just, we got to convert this first down. Hence why viewers often saw Josh Allen running more than he should have. And hopefully going to 2022, Sean McDermott makes Josh Allen run just a little less, intentionally. So overall, the Bills did have a great year from Josh Allen, played at an MVP level. A lot left to be desired from the rest of the team after an 11-6 record and yet another heartbreaking loss to Kansas City. Now, going to the offseason, and they initially were over the cap, around minus $5 million. They managed to get over the cap with some restructuring and some releases. Some of the key free agents heading into pre-free agency included some edge rushers, Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison, a little bit on the older side. Interior defensive lineman Vernon Butler, right tackle Bobby Hart, Levi Wallace, and backup Mitch Trubisky. Now, some of the key offseason moves, the biggest one obviously being getting Broncos and Rams linebacker Von Miller. That's going to be a big get. Sure, they overpaid for him, but it's going to definitely help the Bills in the pass rush. They got a proven name. They got a former Super Bowl MVP and a two-time Super Bowl champion who's just coming off his second Super Bowl win. They also got another offensive lineman for Josh Allen and Rodgers Saffold, a little old as well, but you want to have a veteran presence in protecting Josh Allen. They also signed some receiver depth in Jamison Crowder, and as well as getting some help for Dawson Knox in the rotation and OJ Howard. So taking a little bit of a flyer on him as well. But they managed to lose Levi Wallace and Mitch Trubisky to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, okay, you're going to see Mitch Trubisky at home next season anyway, so we'll see how he does. So right now, they're around $2 million in the cap. So they have to make some money to sign some of their draft signings. So they're currently slated to pick at number 25. And I think some of the things that they have to address throughout the rest of the offseason, including the draft, is their secondary. Because, they got torched a good number of times this past year, especially when Tre'Davious White went down. And that included the divisional game against the Chiefs. They gave up way too many big plays, and had they made like a critical pass breakup or an interception on Mahomes, that could have been a difference maker. That could have been a big difference maker. And hopefully they use one of their mid-round or late-round picks to strengthen their cornerback room. They should also add another defensive lineman. Sure, they already have Von Miller, but they haven't signed back yet Mario Addison or whoever the other, Vernon Butler. So they haven't signed any one of those guys back yet, but they should get some more help in the interior pass rush by getting another D lineman to just help out Von Miller and Ed Oliver. They also could use more upgrades on the offensive line in terms of the rotation. Now, they were good in protecting Josh Allen last season, but it could still use some work. Make it an open competition, especially in terms of creating a running game per sorts, so Josh Allen doesn't have to run it a million times in 2022. So adding Rodgers Saffold was nice, but Buffalo should consider finding a quality lineman in the draft, and if nothing comes up, maybe there's still some like free agents out there that can go for the bargain, go for the cheap price. Whoever wants to try and win the championship with Buffalo, we'll see. So, despite some tough losses, the Bills look like they're gonna finally outdo the Chiefs in 2021. But the defense wasted what was an all-time performance from Josh Allen in that divisional game, and ultimately an all-time season from Josh Allen. Sure, it's not like, crazy shit from Josh Allen, but he was literally the glue that held everything together for Bills Mafia in 2021. Now, certainly, yes, the Bills upgraded their defense by adding Von Miller, but that's only in the defensive line. They still have some things to do in the secondary and the rest of the defensive line to get the Bills over the hump and, get Josh Allen to his first ever Super Bowl. And that's not going to be easy. They're still over the cap. Not over the cap, a little under the cap. And the AFC is crowded as fuck now. So if they're going to survive that crowded AFC, if they're going to be the top dogs this coming season, they're going to have to improve that scrambled egg defense. So next up, we're going to be talking about the Tennessee Titans. For the Tennessee Titans, they were one of the crazier stories in the last couple of years. And why do I say crazy? Well, let's take a look back at some of their most recent success. 2019 is pretty much where it all began for Tennessee. They went on this crazy Cinderella run as the number 6 seed in the AFC, and nobody believed that they're going to win a playoff game. They're just going to be, let's just whisk them aside. And they were heavy underdogs, but they eventually wound up sending Tom Brady and his talents from New England to Tampa Bay. And then they went on to literally destroy the eventual MVP that year, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. And yes, they were up at one point against Patrick Mahomes in the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. But, they ultimately fell short in that game to the eventual Super Bowl champs. So, yes, 2019 didn't go up to standard with the eventual climax of a Super Bowl appearance for the Tennessee Titans, but crazy, they managed to go on that crazy run to begin with, and at all for Tennessee. Now 2020, they managed to follow up that success with a AFC South title, but unfortunately for them, their first playoff game at home for the first time in many years, they fell kind of flat against the Baltimore Ravens in a revenge game of sorts for Ravens flock. Now for Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill, their quarterback right now, they managed to replace former second overall pick Marcus Mariota, and Tannehill would lead the charge on that Cinderella run. And yes, he had some head scratching throws, but pretty solid and did enough to help win the team some games. Now, of course, the offense mainly runs through their king, the king of kings, Derrick Henry. With his ability to break through tackles, run through defenders, he is pretty much a force to be reckoned with. He's won 2 straight rushing titles, and 2021 seemed to be no different. The Titans, defensively, pretty solid. You got defense that's heralded by Harold Landry, Javon Brown on the pass rush, and you got in the secondary corners Buster Screen and free safety Kevin Byard. Now, during the offseason, they focused around the defense just to improve that area. They added the likes of defensive tackle Danico Autry, linebacker Bud Dupree from the Steelers, and corner Janoris Jenkins. And they also drafted Caleb Farley despite some injury history, and Elijah Molden from Washington. And during the summer, they also traded for Falcons receiver Julio Jones to give Tannehill another option besides A.J. Brown. Now, with these key additions and depth pieces finally in place, for Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill, they at least seem confident in finally getting to that Super Bowl that they nearly had in 2019. But for much of the season, yeah, a lot of that confidence, a lot of that hope, was dictated not on just injuries, but also the play on Ryan Tannehill. Now, like I said, Tannehill, he's okay, he's solid, but in 2021, he didn't play all that well. At least not as well as in his first 2 years with Tennessee. But again, not necessarily the worst either. But for half of the time, he didn't prove that spark. He didn't provide I'm gonna change the game on a consistent basis. It was either him scoring multiple touchdowns throughout the game, or it was him handing the ball off to either Derrick Henry or whoever's the running back at the time, and then his team eventually gets into a massive hole because the defense eventually gets tired, and Ryan Tannehill is eventually forced to do something, and he can't do something. So speaking of that defense, championship level one for sure, but again, only could do so much. So like I said, when neither does one of those things work, whether it's the running game, that can't get going, defense gets tired, Ryan Tannehill forced to save the day, and most of the time can deliver. Now, despite the okayness of Tannehill, Titans were still an efficient team. Got some big victories throughout the season against the Chiefs, the Bills. They swept the season series against the Indianapolis Colts and the LA Rams. So, as an AFC top seed, they weren't necessarily scrubs per se. So, and this was despite losing Derrick Henry for half of the season. Now, keep in mind, he was like in that game against the Colts, he got injured with that broken foot. And throughout the season, the Titans were rotating through running backs, trying to, for whatever reason, trying to replicate the success of Henry with Adrian Peterson, Deontay Foreman, and Dontrell Hilliard. Peterson, absolute fail, but Foreman and Hilliard were pretty solid towards the end of the season. And A.J. Brown had another banger year, but unfortunately for Julio Jones, he wasn't available for much of the season because he's just had too many injuries. So in all, the Tennessee Titans clinched the AFC South yet again. They had the AFC's top seed at 12-5. Got some help for some losses from Kansas City. But the thing was, they didn't really act like it at times. And, during that divisional game against the Cincinnati Bengals, some of those problems started to creep up for the Tennessee Titans, especially when it came to Ryan Tannehill. He really picked a shit time to play a really shit game, throwing for 3 interceptions, letting a Cincinnati pass rush get to him like a lot. Not so much so like the Tennessee defense went on Joe Burrow and that terrible offensive line. I think they went for like 9 sacks in that game. Like, holy shit. But damn, Tannehill pretty much undid what the Tennessee defense did for him, throwing for 3 interceptions, all game changing, mind you. The first one being the first pass of the game, and then literally the third interception is the last pass of the game for the Tennessee Titans. So this game was kind of a huge testament to the point we made earlier. The Cincinnati Bengals, which they did, you take the running game away from the Tennessee Titans, whether it's Derrick Henry or somebody else, and the focal point of the offense, it just becomes nothing. It just becomes absolutely nothing. So overall, the Tennessee Titans went 12-5, got the AFC's top seed, but for what? For what? They're gonna be they're still kicking dirt over that big dud that Ryan Tannehill laid in the playoffs. Now they're gonna be asking themselves, is Ryan Tannehill really our man? And that's what we're going to be asking here too. Is Ryan Tannehill really your man, Tennessee? And unfortunately, throughout that 2021, yes, it's only 1 year. It's only 1 year. 2020 and 2019 were like pretty okay-ish years. But 2021 was like kind of a down year for when it came to the Titans and Ryan Tannehill, despite getting that top seed. So, yes, they must have that question, is Ryan Tannehill really our man? But unfortunately, they can't really do anything because they gave him a fat ass contract. Because I don't know why, they just rewarded him for, thanks for taking us to the AFC Championship game. Here's a fat ass contract for you. And guess what? 2 years later, you're stuck with him. You can't trade him. You can't release him because you're going to be dealt with the fat dead cap hit anyway. So you're stuck with him. So here we are. For the Titans offseason, when they first started, they were minus $7 million in the red, so they had to do some restructuring. They already did something good in extending Harold Landry to and putting him in a long-term situation. So one of their key pieces to the defense already locked up for the future. They also re-signed their kicker Randy Bullock. They also signed a tight end, so they just won their offseason needs in Austin Hooper. Sure, not a glaring success for the Cleveland Browns, but when he was on the Falcons, pretty solid. They also released Julio Jones, so yeah, big bust trade for the Tennessee Titans. And Roger Saffold also got released by the Titans as a cost-cutting measure, and he went on to sign with the Buffalo Bills. Now, some of the other key free agents that the Tennessee Titans had and elected not to keep included Ben Jones, the center, Javon Brown and Rashawn Evans, Buster Screen and Greg Maben, and Dontrell Hillard and Deontay Foreman. So pretty much the substitute backups for Derrick Henry and Randy Bullock, who just re-signed. So right now they're pretty much $2.5 million under the cap. So they still have to make some room for their draft signings. And speaking of the draft signings and the rest of the free agency, some of the things that they still have to address, I think last season they pretty much addressed the defensive needs. Now this season has to be about offense. This offseason has to be about offense, because sure, they can go help add inside linebacker because Rashawn Evans and Javon Brown, mind you, are on the open market still. So you can try to convince them to get a team friendly deal to come back, but either way, they're still going to need some help in the defensive backfield to either help in the pass rush or, lock it down in the secondary. So, I mean, sure, you can go get some help at inside linebacker, but the main focus should be on the offense, because you need someone opposite AJ Brown. You also need some receivers behind whoever's going to, like that depth chart behind AJ Brown and whoever's going to be that number 2 option, because Julio Jones is gone. That experiment failed, and sure, they already got Robert Woods in a trade for a 6th-round pick, but we don't know what he's gonna be like coming off an ACL tear. So the Tennessee Titans should go into that 3rd round, or who knows, maybe they might go 1st round for a wide receiver. They need to focus in this draft, and maybe in the bargain bin of free agency, on netting a number 2 receiver. And they have to fix this offensive line just a little bit, because a lot of them are getting a little old, per se. Now, in 2021, they were okay, but they struggled a good chunk in pass protection late in the season, and Ryan Tannehill got sacked a lot as a result. Now, they already have several offensive linemen on their roster, but again, who knows? Who knows if they make it on the 53-man roster come this fall. So, whether it's they want to find a key piece in the draft and what the rotation will be like, that's something the Titans should consider throughout this offseason. So they mostly have everything they need in place to go out and win a Super Bowl. But the thing is, you have some serious questions about how far you can go with Ryan Tannehill, and some other questions, of course. Now, you're fighting against the cap. You're in need of another receiver opposite AJ Brown, and depth behind those 2 receivers. And now the Indianapolis Colts got a little bit better with Matt Ryan in the AFC South. So, yeah, this could get really rough for the Tennessee Titans if they don't make some moves in the draft, or in get some bargain bin options in free agency. And if they don't do that, damn, their hopes of defending an AFC South title with Ryan Tannehill, or let alone making the playoffs, it can get rough. It can get rough really quick. So the 3rd team on our list for this episode is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you're a fan of the Tampa Bay Bucks, if you're a fan of Tom Brady, or you're on the bandwagon pirate ship, 2020 for you is pretty much everything you could have hoped for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Acquiring Tom Brady in free agency after taking his talents from New England to Tampa, and then being joined by his old buddies Rob Gronkowski, who just won the 24/7 title in Tampa, coincidentally, in WWE, and Antonio Brown after his escapades in 2019. And yes, the Tampa Bay Bucks had their struggles with some growing pains and chemistry issues, and Bruce Arians was not shy to say anything about that after some ugly losses, most certainly, especially to the New Orleans Saints. But the Bucks came together late in the season, came into the playoffs as the 5th seed, and man, they initially struggled at first, but they went on a run, beating the Washington football team, then beating the New Orleans Saints, sending Drew Brees into retirement, and then went to cold-ass Lambeau Field, upset the Green Bay Packers, and then, most importantly, became the first ever team to play the Super Bowl in its home stadium, host, technically, the Super Bowl at home, and put the lights out on Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They humbled their asses. And Tom Brady went on to win another Super Bowl MVP, and the defense put the brakes on Mahomes. Like, big time performance from that Bucs defense. So throughout their offseason, it was a big one, really big one for them. They got all their starters back from that Super Bowl run. So not much needed to be done in the offseason except for some window dressing for the most part. So the Bucs seemed like they were going to run it back in 2021 for a potential repeat. And for Tampa Bay, it was pretty much like smooth sailing, pretty much. Like, aside from some back-breaking losses and some heart-pumping games, the Bucs pretty much coasted through this regular season relatively easy for the most part. Tom Brady still continued to fight Father Time, playing at a even higher level. Now that he had a full year to go through what Bruce Arians wants to output in his vertical air attack offense. And along the way, he managed to set some new records while winning games. That's how you properly do statistics, people. You have to do it while winning games. The stats don't always tell the story. The performance does. Okay? So anyway, helping out Tom Brady along the way was, of course, his supporting cast, both on the starting and reserve end. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Gronk, along with the rushing attack of Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, all continued to round out one of the most dangerous yet efficient offenses in the NFL. Also helping Brady out was one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You got a trio of Pro Bowlers in tackle Tristan Wirfs, center Ryan Jensen, and guard Ali Marpet. Protected Brady very well. Gave him all day to throw against the best of the best and the worst of the worst pass rushes. The defense also continued success from the Super Bowl run, netting consistent pressure, hits, and sacks on the quarterback. Secondary was kind of an issue with either injuries or just lapse in coverages. But Tom Brady bailed them out most of the time with his goodness. So hard to fault them on that. But there are a variety of reasons why they weren't able to repeat as champions. They had some pretty bad losses throughout the season to the LA Rams early. They also lost to the Washington football team midpoint in the season. And yes, they even lost to the New Orleans Saints again. Their kryptonite in the regular season is the New Orleans Saints, even if they didn't make the postseason. Like, somehow, some way, Tom Brady's kryptonite is the Saints, literally. So those 4 losses were pretty much what separated them and the Green Bay Packers from the NFC's top seed. And, you know, had it not been for the Rams' midseason slump, Tampa Bay could have been looking at themselves as the 3 seed and traveling to Los Angeles to the divisional. But, you know, tiebreakers helped them out a little bit. They also had some starters either miss time throughout the season or be out of the season completely due to injuries, with Chris Godwin being the biggest hit with a torn ACL. Pretty much affected the offense in a big way. And eventually, Tristan Wirfs got injured in the wildcard game against the Philadelphia Eagles, and then he couldn't play in the divisional game against the Rams with the ankle injury. And then, of course, there was also whatever Antonio Brown did against the New York Jets over what he was claiming playing through a severe ankle injury. So, yes, he was having that temper tantrum over that, like how legit, whatever was going on with settling that dispute between Bruce Arians, the Bucs, and Antonio Brown. Who knows at this point? So that he got released, and it affected the Bucs offense even more. So nonetheless, the Bucs clinched the NFC South pretty easily, and despite all the injuries, despite that distraction, they looked to get the repeat going as the number 2 seed. They easily disposed of the Philadelphia Eagles, but they were getting blown out early by the LA Rams in the divisional game. But 27-3 is a familiar number for Tom Brady at halftime, and he managed to come back like slowly but surely. And you got like literally over 30 seconds left, 27 all. Tom Brady put the lights out on offense, with Mike Evans, not Chris Godwin, and pretty much just about everybody on offense. And all they need for the Bucs to get back in this game was one last stop on defense. But unfortunately, that was not to be, because Cooper Kupp got away enough for the Rams to get into field goal range and get that game-winning field goal and end Tampa Bay's hope of a repeat. So overall, I mean, it wasn't really a failed season for Tampa Bay, but a season that could have gone better if things went a little bit their way. Had it not been for all the injuries and some better drawn up plays on defense, and then there was whatever that was from Antonio Brown. So yeah, could have gone better, and at a point during the offseason, it could have gone a lot worse because, well, as we all know, Tom Brady announced his retirement a week after they lost. And then here we are 2 months later. The boy is back. He was like, nope, fuck family life. Fuck taking my kids to school. I'm going to play another season of football. So Tom Brady is back in the NFL after telling retirement and family life to go fuck itself for right now. And he's going to be playing at least another season of football. And the Bucs are going to be trying again in 2022. So in terms of their offseason right now, as they entered it, they had around $3 million of cap space, so not really much to spend. And they had pretty much some in-house needs to clean up. So the likes of Chris Godwin, Jason Pierre-Paul, Ryan Jensen, Ndamukong Suh, Leonard Fournette, and Ron Jones, Carlton Davis, a lot of really key names that had expiring contracts coming up. So some of their key moves in the offseason right now, well, the biggest one being, well, they got Tom Brady back, so they didn't need to be looking for a quarterback or hope that Kyle Trask turned into something. They also got Chris Godwin, Ryan Jensen, Leonard Fournette, and Carlton Davis back to a couple of slightly long-term deals. They also got Shaq Mason from the New England Patriots via trade. So yeah, Bill Belichick kind of helping out his buddy there, Tom Brady there. So with the offensive line, and they also got a somewhat other weapon in Russell Gage from, well, guess who? The division rival, the Atlanta Falcons. So yeah, some crazy stuff piling up for Tampa Bay. It's the Tom Brady effect in going on. So right now, the Tampa Bay Bucs, after some restructuring, after some extensions, they have around $9 million to spend. So they got a little bit of a bump. So enough for whatever they're gonna do in the draft. So they're slated to pick number 27th in the NFL draft this coming April. And something that they could address, and it's not many, but they could add some depth to the running back room. So behind Leonard Fournette, it's not really pretty. Ronald Jones is now in Kansas City, and they need to reset that rotation. Keyshawn Vaughn was middling at best, but do you really want to go into a backup rotation that only has Keyshawn Vaughn in it and nobody else semi decent in case Leonard Fournette gets hurt? Really? Just consider that. They can also consider getting some more help at wide receiver. Sure, they have Chris Godwin. They already have Mike Evans. They have Russell Gage, but I mean, sure, he had one good season, but who knows if he pans out to anything else. So it doesn't hurt to add some more depth to the receiver position, especially when you have a quarterback like Tom Brady. So, for the Bucs, they looked well on their way to repeating as world champions in 2021, considering how relatively smooth they were sailing throughout the regular season. But, they also had some bad losses at the same time, some badly timed injuries as well, that pretty much became preventing measures that eventually not even Tom Brady would overcome. Still, they have Brady back for 2022 after a very brief retirement, and sure, they only lost a few key pieces to their championship core. And despite that, though, the NFC is considerably much weaker. Russell Wilson now in Denver. Who else is left? I think pretty much the big name that has gone to out of the NFC, but the NFC is pretty much weaker. And Tom Brady is pretty much back in the fold in what can be a easier NFC for the taking for Tampa Bay. So as long as Tom Brady's in the fold, 2022 could present the Bucs chance to give Tom Brady perhaps a proper retirement gift in the form of another Super Bowl run, and perhaps another Super Bowl ring. So the final team we're going to be talking about today is the Green Bay Packers. For the Packers, they were the top overall team in the NFL this past season, at least in the regular season. And I'm starting to see a common theme for the Green Bay Packers in the last decade. Aside from 2 bad seasons in 2017 and 2018, they've had some pretty successful regular seasons, and some of which included some MVP-like ones from their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. But when it came to true nut-busting time in the playoffs, they could never get over that hump and get back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2010. That 2010 season where, Aaron Rodgers won his first and currently to this day only Super Bowl. And, during those over the hump losses included heartbreakers to the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals in back-to-back years. And then there were also those embarrassing NFC Championship stinkers to the Atlanta Falcons in the San Francisco 49ers. And then, of course, there's that most recent and best opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, literally on the table for them. Aaron Rodgers and their head coach, Matt LaFleur, again, tripped and shit on the bed against Tom Brady and his Tampa Bay Bucks at home when they had the top seed in the NFC. So, literally shit the bed on that one. And they literally spoiled a chance to have the State Farm Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. So, for the Packers, as if they didn't already have one offseason of controversy enough when they drafted Jordan Love in 2020, 2021 was no different. They already had the re-signs of, you had Aaron Jones coming back, Kevin King coming back, other in-house free agents coming back, and whatever they were drafting that in the NFL draft in 2021. But all that was pretty much overshadowed by the news of Aaron Rodgers initially at the time wanting out of the Green Bay Packers and wanting a trade. Of course, all that was literally debunked, and the Packers and Aaron Rodgers eventually made up, and Aaron Rodgers restructured or at least extended a little parts of his contract so he can return in time for training camp and hopefully this time make a Super Bowl run out of this season. And, after all that craziness, after all that drama, the Packers, look poised to run it back again and dominate the NFC like they did in 2020. And initially, when they started the season, they didn't get the memo. They instead decided to smoke. Let's get all elite, baby, with Adam Cole, baby, and the Cucks of Suck and Kenny Omega. They went to the land of all elite wrestling because the Superdome wasn't available at the time, and they got their ass handed by the New Orleans Saints. They smoked too much of that AEW blunt, whatever Tony Khan was handing them that day. And the Packers, after that, went on a tear, only losing 3 more times, and they really never lost their grip on the NFC's top seed. And that was because Aaron Rodgers had yet another MVP season, clearly waking up from that AEW hangover and putting up huge production despite losing a few key players on the offensive line. And mind you, his best offensive lineman, David Bakhtiari, he didn't really play most of the season until that pointless Detroit Lions season finale game, and he never showed up for the divisional playoff game because of injury. And then there were also some injuries in the reserve receiving game. But the thing with Aaron Rodgers was he was in the hot water with the media often because of his COVID-19 status and his immunization towards it. And that got him into some trouble with the NFL when he tested positive for COVID, and then he lied about being vaccinated. So he got into some hot water there, missed a big Week 9 matchup, and again, spoiling a State Farm matchup between himself and Patrick Mahomes. And that game also saw Jordan Love make his first ever NFL start, and yeah, that didn't go so great. But either way, Devonte Adams continued to show his excellence as one of, if not the top receivers in the NFL. and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon formed a nice tandem backfield for the Packers. But other than that, the offense was kind of outside of those couple of players. But the Packers defense, probably one of the top in the NFL. They got better under new defensive coordinator Joe Barry, replacing Mike Penn. Edge rusher Rashawn Gary led a strong defensive line alongside linebackers Preston Smith and the other Smith in Zadarius. The drafting of corner Eric Stokes in the early season acquisition of Rasul Douglas. Pretty damn good for the secondary. Both of them were excellent in breaking up plays, creating turnovers, etc., etc. So all in all, they once again clinched the NFC North with relative ease and clinched the top seed in the NFC for the second straight year. And, they only suffered minor setbacks against the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions, with the Lions being a pointless regular season finale. But then when it came again, you win 13 games, you get the top seed in the NFC, you win the NFC North. But much like in years past, the Packers somehow, in some way, found a way to fuck things up and trip over that brick once again and fall into some deep, deep dog doo-doo in the playoffs. You scored in the opening drive against the San Francisco 49ers and Jimmy Garbage fail. And what does Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers do after that? They let the 49ers and their defensive coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, literally stalled the offense completely. They let the 49ers pass rush get to Aaron Rodgers countless times with Matt LaFleur doing absolutely nothing to change things up. And they let Aaron Rodgers just get sacked relentlessly with no changes whatsoever. And making matters worse was perhaps their biggest glaring weakness that I have yet to mention at all at this point. And their biggest weakness all season long was their special teams. And it came back to bite their ass in the biggest of ways. They were ranked dead last because of their inability to stop kick and punt returns and their inability to make their own big plays. And their kicker, Mason Crosby, missing more field goals than making them. So this special team unit was pretty bad. It was pretty damn bad. And in this game in particular, against the 49ers at home, they allowed JaMychal Hasty and Deebo Samuel to get huge kickoff returns. They let Mason Crosby's field goal get blocked at the end of the first half. And then the thing that changed the game for the Green Bay Packers, they somehow let Jordan Willis break through the special teams offensive line and then block the punt freely, and then everyone's just waiting around. And then here comes Talanoa Hufanga to scoop up the ball right wide open and then score the touchdown to tie the game 10 apiece. And then the momentum shifts in favor of the 49ers from there. And yeah, we all know what happens from there. The 49ers end up winning the game, going on to win the NFC Championship game. And oh my God, it's one thing that Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, get beat by Tom Brady and the Bucs in the NFC Championship game. But this time around, they didn't even make it back to the NFC Championship game. This was their chance to go back. All they had to do was whoop the candy ass of the San Francisco 49ers and Jimmy Garbage fail. But they didn't even do it. They couldn't even do it. They couldn't, Aaron Rodgers didn't show up for even the first playoff game. They didn't do shit. They only did shit on the first drive, but they forgot about everything else after that. So 2021 was literally Rodgers' chance to finally get over that hump, go back to his second Super Bowl. But he once again, alongside Matt LaFleur, we should be calling them that now, Matt LaFleur, until he decides to do something besides going to the NFC Championship game. Both of them failed to show up. They failed to show up when it came to true nut-busting time. Sure, Aaron Rodgers has already decided to come back to the Green Bay Packers and already agreed to extension. All's happy in Titletown. But is it really? Is it really right now? Let me ask you that, Cheeseheads. Let me ask you that, Packer Nation. Let me ask you that. Because, going to their offseason, coming off their somewhat successful 13-4 season, they were minus $44 million in the cap. So big red. big red. Now they managed to get under that cap before the league year started, but man, they had to do a lot of things to get under that cap. Some of their key free agents included Kevin King and Rasul Douglas, Robert Tonyan, who suffered that torn ACL in Week 8 against the Arizona Cardinals, linebacker Devonte Campbell, Whitney Merciless, Marcus Valdez-Scantling. Some of the key free agents there. Some of their key offseason moves was obviously getting Aaron Rodgers back, finally goading him into a decision, and then getting linebacker Preston Smith into a contract extension. They also re-signed Rasul Douglas and Robert Tonyan back, but they lost Marcus Valdez-Scantling to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't think he'll be a major loss for them. They also lost Darius Smith to the Minnesota Vikings, and yeah, that's kind of a blow to that Packers defense, and especially kind of a blow when you lose them to a division rival. Yeah. What are you doing? And then perhaps the biggest blow of all for the Green Bay Packers is trading away Devonte Adams to the Las Vegas Raiders for this year's first and second round picks. Now, yes, you get a first and second round pick this year, but it's no guarantee that Brian Gutekunst and the Packers front office are going to nail that first round pick and second round pick to find Devonte Adams' replacement. So, like, damn, like, where are they going to find production? Where are they going to find anything for this offense now that Aaron Rodgers is deciding to come back? Like, damn. Yes, Devonte Adams is going to play for a lesser quarterback in Derek Carr. Ooh, yes, they both played together in Fresno. But, holy shit. Holy crap. Why did Aaron Rodgers decide to stay? If he knew about this too. If he knew Devonte Adams had to go away. Damn. Holy shit. So for the Packers, after all that restructuring, after literally giving away Devonte Adams to the Raiders, they have about $15 million to spend throughout the rest of the offseason. So some room for their first round picks and the remaining draft picks and whatever they want to spend else in free agency. Now, the current draft position, they have 2 in the first round in the 22nd pick from the Raiders and their own first round pick in number 28. And some of their needs, and oh man, they're going to definitely need a big one on this, is finding wide receivers. Receivers with a Z, a big fat Z in it to replace Devonte Adams. And like I said, it's going to be very hard to replace Devonte Adams in the production he had. Just like with the Kansas City Chiefs, it's going to be hard to find production that Tyreek Hill had for Patrick Mahomes. But in terms of the Packers, they're going to need it fast. They're going to need it really fast if Rodgers hopes to finally return to the Super Bowl. Now, there's plenty of worthy late first round receivers in this draft. So hopefully by that time, whether it's 22nd and 28th, hopefully this time, general manager Brian Gutekunst, finally wakes his ass up to pick a receiver, the best available one that fits in Matt LaFleur's offense in this draft. And probably they should use a second round pick to nab another one too. They could also use some help on the front seven because, well, they lost Preston Smith to the Minnesota Vikings, and that could end up being a big loss for the Packers pass rush. So clearly they have 2 first round picks, so maybe they could use the other one on finding another linebacker to replace the production value for what Smith had to offer. So like in years past, 2021 for the Green Bay Packers, they were a talented team. 13 wins, NFC North, top seed in the NFC, but also like in years past, they, and especially Aaron Rodgers, they flopped very hard when the bright lights shined on them. And this time around, they didn't even get back to the NFC Championship game. They lost to the 49ers of all teams, and they lost to, of all quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo, aka Jimmy Garbage Fail. Making matters worse for the Green Bay Packers is that the front office was forced to ship out Rodgers' go-to option in Devonte Adams to pretty much roll it back with Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders, like Derek Carr and Devonte Adams were doing it in Fresno when they were in college. So, holy hell. The Packers better find some receivers for Aaron Rodgers to go to in 2022, or they're not going to be producing much shit in 2022, despite, having Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. And perhaps soon enough, for Aaron Rodgers, he may be soon regretting staying in Green Bay, signing that big ass contract extension, because yes, he cares about the money, but at the cost of what? Exactly. At the cost of what? And my final question for the Green Bay Packers is, can you even call yourselves an NFC favorite, let alone an NFC North favorite at this point in time? We'll see. So that is it for part 5 of my 2021 NFL season recaps. Only 4 teams in this one. We talked about the Buffalo Bills, the Green Bay Packers, the Tennessee Titans, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. In this part 5, we're going to be talking about the last 3 teams in the final part 6. Later on this week, I think it's going to be, hopefully at this point, at the end of the week. Just stay tuned. We're going to be talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the champion of the 2021 season, the LA Rams. So stay tuned for that. But if you enjoyed this March Madness, make sure you go check it out if you missed any of them, and go support Very Cold Lasagna however you can. Give it a like, give it a review, leave a comment however you can. Especially if you're watching this on YouTube, like your likes and your comments, it helps like push out more views however you can. It means the world to me. Your views, your support, it really does mean the world to me as I try to continue growing this filthy casual podcast of a guy just chatting about sports and pro wrestling in the most filthy casual way possible from a filthy casual fan. But that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna, episode number 97 of this freezing cold podcast. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Make sure to do all the good things in relation to Very Cold Lasagna. Like, comment, subscribe, follow everything in relation to the show, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, as well as the social medias on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports. Very cold in the fridge with all your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports, icy and spicy like that very cold lasagna. And until next time, when we conclude our March Madness here on Very Cold Lasagna, peace out.